In this video, we're going to talk about how to graph an equation in other forms besides slope-intercept form. But first, we're going to remind ourselves what slope-intercept form is and what some of the other forms are, and then we're going to graph by rewriting from standard form. So first, linear equations are frequently written in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So it's y equals, and then everything else is on the other side. You'll remember that standard form is another form of linear equation where we have ax plus by equals c. And a, b, and c are all numbers, and x and y are on the same side of the equal sign. So let's talk about how to graph 4x plus 3y equals 21. So first, what form is this in? That's the first thing when it says to graph that you need to think, okay, what form is this in? It's got x and y on the same side of the equal sign, so that makes it standard form. So you'll remember perhaps that we can always graph just by finding two solutions to this equation and graphing those points. So the x and y intercepts, if you have standard form, you should always try the x and y intercepts first because those are really easy to find. So let's try that. You'll remember for the x-intercept, we put 0 in for y. So we get 4x equals 21. So x equals 21 fourths. So the x-intercept is 21 fourths, comma, 0. And plotting that on most graphs is really, really challenging. So this is not necessarily the best strategy for graphing this particular one in standard form. Although I would always kind of default to this, kind of do it real quick in my head to see if I'm going to get a fraction, because sometimes you don't get a fraction and it's really easy to just graph the x and y intercepts. But if we were to convert this into slope-intercept form, then we could use the slope and the y-intercept, and the y-intercept is actually quite nice here. The y-intercept ends up being 0, 7. So if I could just figure out what the slope is, then I could graph that pretty easily. So that's the strategy we're going to use in this video. Here are the steps to graphing by rewriting. So first, write the equation in slope-intercept form. Second, graph the y-intercept, then use the slope of the line to create more points. Remember that slope is rise over run, and then use a ruler to draw a line that extends to the points, placing an arrow on both ends. Okay, so this is that equation from before. Remember the x-intercept is not nice, but the first step is to rewrite it in slope-intercept form. And slope-intercept form is y equals something, 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 something. So we need to solve for y. So I'm going to box the y term and then circle all the terms that are not y. I'm going to move the circles all to the same side of the equal sign, and if it switches sides, it has to switch signs. And then the last step of solving is to divide by 3. And I'm going to flip these terms around, bringing that negative with the 4. And you remember dividing by 3 is a lot like the distributive property. You're going to divide that into each term. And that's a positive 21. So I'm going to put oh, I almost didn't divide it into that one. So I'm going to put a plus 7 there. So I have now got it in slope-intercept form. The y-intercept is 7. The slope is negative 4 over 3. So I'm going to run 3 and rise, but this time I'm going to sink because it's negative. So I'm going to run 3, sink 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's that slope triangle of 3, 4. Running 3, rising or sinking if it's negative 4. And you can do that a couple of times, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, to get another point. And then you'll graph the line going all the way through and putting arrows on the ends. Let's look at one more example. Again, I take a look at this and I recognize that this is in standard form. And the y-intercept and the x-intercept are actually really easy here. The y-intercept would be negative 3 divided by 3, which would be negative 1, and the x-intercept would be negative 3. So this would be actually pretty easy to graph by x and y intercepts, but I'm going to go ahead and show these steps just in case you need one more example of how to do this when you don't get nice integer x and y intercepts. So first, let's put it in slope-intercept form. So I'm going to put a box around the y term, circle all the other terms, move the x over to the other side, and it was a positive x over here, so it's going to be a negative x over here. And then I'm going to divide each term by 3. So I'm going to get y equals negative x over 3 minus 3 divided by 3 is 1. Plot the y-intercept, got that, negative 1 from here. Use the slope to create more points. So I'm going to put an understood 1 right here. This is my rise, this is my run, so I'm going to run 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to rise 1, except I'm going to sink because it's negative. Again! 1, 2, 3, sink 1. If it's a positive, you would go up instead of down. And then I'm going to draw my line. And it mostly went through the points. Use your straight tool to draw your straight line and put arrows at the ends. And that is how you graph something from standard form by rewriting it in slope-intercept form.